This tattered old book has seen a lot in its life. It's now cherished by my grandma Ruth, who has tasked me with making a conservation case for it, a simple task that I've naturally overcomplicated like I always seem to do. The book sat in my office for too long, while I worked on other projects, not really knowing what direction to take this case in. Until one day I decided to delicately open the fragile book to look up its publisher and the date it was printed. After flicking past the intricate woodblock printings of the supposed genealogy of Jesus, I found it. Printed by Robert Barker, printer to the King's Most Excellent Majesty, 1638. I quickly googled it, not expecting to find much, but then an article by the Ransom Center magazine caught my eye. Embroidered Bible tells many stories. I scrolled to the bottom, and sure enough, there were pictures of a Bible the same size and shape as my grandma's, with similar artwork and typesetting, and from the same year, but with a lovely embroidered cover. This set my mind racing with possibilities. Of course, Grandma's Bible almost certainly wouldn't have had a cover so grand, but after everything this book has been through, it felt right to give it the cover it deserves. I set to researching historical examples of embroidery and depictions of scenes from the Bible related to fire, and before long I had drawn up a design with Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego on the front, and the burning bush on the back, with a flowery border and golden title. I then printed this design on some basic book cloth made from bonding a cotton calico to some acid-free tissue paper. I wanted the fabric to be similar to what would have been available at the time, although this is cotton and it likely would have been flax in the 1600s. When starting this embroidery project, the first embroidery project I've ever done, I thought to myself, this will only take a couple of days. As you can see, it's taken much longer. It actually took me over 2 weeks. I got through the Legends and Lattes audiobook, which is 7 hours, and then the Fellowship of the Ring audiobook, which is a further 22 hours. And countless TV shows and podcasts. Editing this footage actually hurts my soul a little. I'm condensing so much of my time into a matter of seconds, but all the effort was worth it. After finally completing the embroidery, I moved on to making the case. I decided to use my 3D printer for the curved spine and the outer clamshell. This decision was made around the same time I made the ring box for my fiancée Grace. I liked how the layers made it look like the side of a text block, and if the conservation case is going to be the symbolic cover of this Bible, it needs to look the part. It did present a challenge though. This is a conservation case, and the standard 3D printing filament, PLA, isn't very stable, and might off-gas or leach chemicals or acid into the Bible as it degrades. I chose PETG as an alternative, as it's much more stable, but it has a major issue. This relative inertness means that it's hard to get stuff to stick to it. PVA glue, the standard in bookbinding, doesn't adhere well at all. I had to get a little creative, but eventually I found that acrylic gel medium will stick to both the plastic and to paper, so I can use it as an interface layer. It also has the benefit of being archival, and will create a barrier between the paper and plastic, helping to avoid any issues coming from the plastic's proximity to this old book over time. While I had this acrylic gel medium out, I decided it would be best to seal the holes that I'd poked into my book cloth while embroidering. This will stop the glue that I used to stick it to the boards from being drawn through the fabric through capillary action and creating blotchy stains on the finished side. Once that dries, you can treat it like any book cloth and stick the boards down with a mix of PVA and methyl cellulose. Clamping became an issue with the curved spine and my reluctance to crush the embroidery, so I pressed the cloth while it dried between some sponges and some cloth. This allows the fabric to still get a little pressure while it dries, but without causing any damage. After cutting and turning in the edges, I was really happy with the result, but I was starting to dread the next step, making the clamshell. Attaching the 3D printed outer shell went perfectly fine, other than me nearly forgetting to glue in the reinforcing mull across the hinges. But what I was really dreading was making the inner support. This is a complicated geometric shape that has to be tight enough to give the book the support it needs, without being so tight that it causes damage to the book. After thinking about it until my brain hurt, I overcame the procrastination and started work. I briefly considered 3D printing the inner support as well, but I decided to use greyboard, as this is a conventional material used in bookbinding with well-known chemical properties that won't damage the book over time. But this does mean a lot more manual construction on my part. Whilst I wrap my head around making the inner support, I want to explain the references to fire in my embroidery and why this Bible is missing its cover. I don't know what the book got up to between 1638 and the 20th century, but its path crossed mine when Kate Langley gave it to my late grandfather, a vicar in the parish of Chippenham, Cambridgeshire. I believe it was their family Bible, but it found itself in its current state after their thatched cottage tragically burnt down. The flames burnt away the cover, but the text block survived in miraculous condition, all things considered, but it's in desperate need of conservation. Kate knew that it was precious and historically valuable, but didn't know what to do with it, so passed it on to my grandfather to protect it into the future. I vaguely remember seeing it in my grandfather's study as a child, not really understanding its significance. My love of books wouldn't kick in for many years, so I never got a chance to speak with him about it. I'm not religious myself, but I see the sentiment attached to this book, and I think it's right to protect it. I hope that he would approve of my work. All in, the inner support took about a day for me to construct. I'm happy with the fit of it, and after some light cleanup and sanding, it's ready to receive the decorative paper. In this shot, I'm burnishing the paper, which is a polishing technique where you apply a wax to the paper and then push down hard and force the surface smooth. This will protect both the paper with a protective coating, but also the book, creating a smoother surface for it to slide in and out of the case on. Deciding the paper took me longer than it should have. I wanted to play with some block printed patterns, but I also wanted it to be in keeping with the age of the book. After my own research hit a dead end, I reached out to my marbling paper friend, and also Hushful Archives on Instagram, an amazing clothing and pattern designer who takes inspiration from artwork found in historical books. Both were incredibly supportive and tried their best to help, but there just weren't many examples. Block printed decorative paper just wasn't very common in the 1600s, so I sheepishly sent off an order to Jess, the whimsical marbler, who sent this lovely pastel green marbled paper as quickly as she could. Cutting and gluing the paper onto the inner book support went really smoothly, right up until the last panel, where I forgot that wet paper expands and distorts. As I dabbed the glue onto the paper rather than the greyboard, it immediately grew in length, making all of my painstaking measuring go to waste. Thankfully, I left enough margin to massage the paper over the exposed greyboard, and I could cut away the excess. The organic shapes on the marbled paper really helps camouflage my mistake, and you can only really see it if you look for it. This would have been a nightmare if I'd have gone with the patterned paper as originally planned. The penultimate step was making some fake headbands for the drop spine. I made them by coating some thick string in glue and then wrapping some embroidery thread around it. This then gets attached to the spine using some PVA. These play a dual role in hiding the raw edge of the fabric where the book cloth wraps around the edges of the spine, and also providing a nice surface for the plastic outer shell to press against when closing the case. All that was left was attaching the inner support, and it was finally complete. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I wish I had the skills to mend the text block and help it survive into the future, but I really think it needs a professional conservationist. We might try to get it onto the repair shop soon. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.